Steve Loomis, walking that mile. Nick, thanks so much for doing this with me. Um, yeah, I guess you and have talked a few times, but you came into, for me to even know you was you got shut down at a school board meeting, um, probably 3 months ago, 4 months ago, so now. And then I started looking into that school board myself and saw that you got shut down almost every meeting this whole year. So tell me how this whole thing started.
So what started it was that we got a text talking about that the Augusta School Board had a vote that it wasn't to just allow boys in the same bathroom. What this vote was is that, say a little boy came into the bathroom that your daughter was in. If your daughter went to the teacher and said, "Hey, listen, I feel uncomfortable about this situation," your daughter got suspended for discrimination or whatever. Like, she wasn't allowed to express how she felt. So that was what we originally. I put out a video trying to get people from all over to show up, and we've watched prior school board meetings. That was the number one question people asked me was like, "Hey, listen, if I drive 45 minutes to come to this school board meeting, am I going to be allowed to speak?" Well, we've watched several meetings, and at the very first meeting, I'm pretty sure it was the December meeting. It may have been the January meeting, but I put out a video. Um, that was the first time I've seen Maine parents show up, and it made Miss Muffy scared. So at the beginning of the meeting, she, made this new rule that no one from out of the Augusta district was going to be allowed to speak. So I had a few people that drove over an hour from Freeport. We had people from Bangor that came down because they realized that if this is going on in the capital of Maine, it's going on in everywhere. So they showed up, and one of the women that had pre-written her speech was a little upset that she had drove over an hour to make it to this meeting and wasn't going to be allowed to speak. And she gave her speech to Pablo, which is also an Augusta resident. He didn't really have much to say. He knew he wasn't going to waste all of his time. He just wanted to ask a few questions. So he was like, "You know what? I'll read your speech." And in the very first meeting, he started, he did his speech. And what aggravated Pablo is the same thing that aggravated the rest of us, is while we're up there expressing how we feel about this situation as taxpayers, as people that put these people in these positions and trusted them with our children, while we're up there expressing our concerns, they're standing there and they're not even listening to us. They're looking down, they're completely acting like what we're saying doesn't even matter. And Pablo called him out. He said, "Hey, listen, pay attention. I'm talking to you guys. Like, what's going on?" And then he started to read the second speech, and he felt that because they weren't paying attention to half of what he was saying, that he had the right to finish what he was saying. And he went 15 seconds, 20 seconds over the bell, and he was immediately brought out in handcuffs. That's how the first meeting went. And after that, it kind of snowballed from there. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the videos. The one that you're talking about that went pretty viral was the one where it was, I think it was the meeting after that where I had started I started a petition. So Trump came out with the executive order that was banning all this and was going to take away our federal funding. Well, here in Maine, we have something called the Maine Principals Association. The Maine Principals Association is what dictates everything that goes on with our high school, middle school, and all that sports. Your school can come out and say, "Hey, listen, we're not going to allow that." But if your school's competing in Maine sports, you're part of the Maine Principals Association. So guess what? You're allowing that. And the president of the Maine Principals Association, that just so happens to be a raging liberal and supports all of this. And if you go back to the first meeting, this was one of the biggest highlights of the first meeting. She was standing there on the podium, and James Orr, one of the school board members that is fighting the good fight, asked her, blatantly, hey, listen, is there separate bathrooms? Can anyone walk into a bathroom? And she straight up admitted, no, anyone can walk. Yeah, there is separate bathrooms. There is single stall. There is, but if a boy that thinks he's a girl wants to walk into a female bathroom, there's nothing they can do about it. Especially when they're playing sports, if they're in a locker room, there's nothing they can do about it. So my way of trying to get around that entire situation, because seeing that, our school board wasn't doing nothing about it, is I started a petition. And I wanted to start a petition, and I was going around knocking on doors here in the Augusta district asking if they would put a petition forward to ask Mike Tracy, our superintendent, to put a vote up to have Miss Kim removed as the principal at Coney, because if you're not principal, I would assume that you wouldn't be allowed to be part of the Maine Principals Association. So I was trying to cut the head of the snake. And I showed up to the school board meeting. They already knew about my petition because the petition kind of went viral. There were some students that were actually, apparently a lot of the students were talking about this, because there were some students that actually reached out to me and said, hey, listen, we were told if we signed this that there was going to be retaliation. And I heard that from parents also as well too. So I also found out that they sent out an email before the school board meeting letting them know about this petition, letting them know what was going on and all this. And she made another rule at the beginning of this meeting, and apparently she tried to say that I wasn't allowed to. So her rules is that we're not allowed to talk any kind of negative about anyone that is a school board member, school board district. So you're allowed to get up there, you're allowed to praise them, you're allowed to tell them how good of a job they're doing. But the second you get up there and criticize, that the fact that our test scores are dropping, that the fact that, our students are not getting the education that they're getting, and that they're too focused on supporting this alphabet cult, shut completely down, because that's against the rules. So what they didn't remember is that as Miss Kim, she's also the president of the Maine Principals Association. So if I'm referring to her as the president of the Maine Principals Association, she's not an Augusta employee. I'm referring to her as a public figure, and yet I still got shut down. So that was what you seen in the meeting that went viral with, it went on Fox News. The Hodge twins did a video on it, and then it just kind of snowballed down from there.
Nice. I didn't know that the Hodge twins did
Oh, the Hodge twins. That one was pretty funny, because the Hodge twins are pretty funny. No, I had people, so I'm not from Maine, and there's people that I hadn't talked to in 10 years that somehow got a hold of me, found me on Facebook. They're like, bro, I just seen you on Fox News.
That's awesome. And so all this, I guess the publicity has been snowballing up to the point that, that incident went viral. Have you received any information from the school board that they're thinking about backing down from this stuff?
No. So they actually doubled down on it. So the last, I really appreciate that you have been covering this, because, there's not many people that do cover stuff like this, and the fact that people cover it, it gets out. So the last meeting, when you were wondering about the lawsuit, and then you seen the lawyer in there, so actually that was the school board's lawyer. That was the lawyer that they brought in to see what they can do and what they can't do. If you go to my X account, PWA1776, you actually see that I seen the lawyer outside before, they're going through, because that meeting, they knew it was going to be a little crazy. So they packed the agenda with, and this is why I got so mad. They packed the agenda with so much bullcrap that public comment didn't even happen till 9 o'clock at night. So we had to wait for 2.5 hours just to be able to speak. And I still didn't even get to say what I wanted to say. And that's why I got so mad. But I seen the lawyer outside, and he's outside waiting for public comment. He's kind of waiting in the hallway. And what made him go into the room when you notice he's sitting by Mike Tracy was because I walked up to him and I said, oh, you're the lawyer here that's for the school board, ain't you? And he's like, yeah. And I said, so let me ask you something. Do you think what they're doing here is constitutional? And he starts packing up his stuff. Wouldn't even answer me. Starts packing up his stuff and goes immediately and sits down by Mike Tracy. So the lawyer that was there was because they're trying to double down on what they're doing.
Well, that may bite him in the ass because he was there when you got kicked out again. So
I even asked for him in the video. I said, lawyer, you gonna, like, what are you doing? Like, that was the whole point why I reached out and said, hey, you're in here. Tell them what they're doing. Like, what did I say?
that's true. That's very true. So this whole policy thing, how long has this, as far as you know, how long have these policies been in place that you've been
Since I've been
trying to
coming, apparently since I've been coming to the meeting, she's used this same policy for every meeting.
fight? Okay, and obviously there's a double standard.
A completely double standard. I mean, she's allowed Miss. I call her Jenny from the Rainbow. That's my nickname for her. But she's allowed her to literally come up there and just say all different types of things. I mean, even about the school board members. I mean, when she got up there, even after the whole, and when Alan had his spill and yelled and all that, she got back up there and she's like, I can't believe that I was so and so by the school board. If I said that, she would have slapped the hammer down.
For sure. Yeah. How about the policies at the school as far as like allowing boys in the girls' bathrooms and all that kind of stuff? Has that been a year or more?
So I thought we got them to go back to the Title IX policy because I forgot what meeting it was. They voted to go back to. It was like some version of the Title IX policy, but I guess it wasn't completely what I thought it was. So I'm not completely sure where they stand now on that, because really it's going to dictate to the Maine Principals Association. It comes down to I guess the Maine Human Rights Act that is what's dictating all this and stuff like that. But at the same time, we've had plenty of different school boards here in the state that have completely ignored the Maine Human Rights Act and said, you know what, we're not going to allow this. Speaking of all this, did you see what just happened today? That the Penn State College is now going to recognize that what's her face actually won, that she had to compete against a man. I don't know. Hey, Janet Mills, did you hear that? Because didn't you just receive an award because you're allowing this nonsense to keep going on here in Maine? I mean, there's a reason why, I'm having to make awards for young women here in the state of Maine that's getting beat by biological boys that competed the year before and placed 8th place.
Yeah, I think it was UPenn.
Yeah, UPenn. I mean, they came out today and said, "Listen, we're gonna recognize all the prior women that lost to male athletes. They're gonna send personal letters out apologizing." Like,
Yeah, I did see that, and it's not like they're doing this out of the goodness of their heart. I know it's like $175 million or something that was on hold until they decided to do this. So I think that's what's going to have to happen. They're going to have to keep pulling funding until they start seeing the light.
I mean, granted, it's not completely a makeup because they still, these girls still lost scholarships. These girls still lost a lot of stuff, and that's why, this is a big issue. And the fact that you actually got to sit here and defend why biological boys shouldn't compete in women's sports is just, I don't know, it's crazy to me. I feel like we live in clown world right now.
Yeah, I do too. And I was so excited when Trump got elected and he immediately started these executive orders and some changes happened, but a lot of people are pushing back and making them fight.
Think about how Pride Month went this month. I'm going to be honest with you. It was a very quiet Pride Month compared to the prior months. You didn't see all these different organizations advertising it. And what's funny is everyone tries to say, people like me are so homophobic. And what's funny is I got two best friends that are two gay butch women that, they don't identify as two gay bitch women. You know what they identify as is two patriots that love this country, and what they do in their bedroom doesn't identify them as a person. You know, just like what I do in my bedroom. I don't get on this podcast and say I'm a straight white male. No, I'm a dad. I'm a patriot. I'm a fighter. That's what identifies me, not what I do in my bedroom. And that's not what should. And if that's what all identifies you as a person is what you do in your bedroom, that's a mental illness.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, and that, that's the other part of it too. So like all these kids are getting their scholarships, their ability to compete, all that, and it's ruined. Like you said, they can't unring that bell. So when they say, "Oh, we're sorry," like we made a mistake, like that doesn't change
No, it doesn't
these
change
women
it.
who went through college. They can't redo that experience.
That's like this poor girl that I made this award for that I'm still trying to get in contact with. That if you watched a video of the race when this happened, she literally puts her hands on her wrist and she's shaking her head and she's like, she feels defeated because you guys think that these young girls wake up and just become a state champion? Like you think that just happens to these young girls? No, these young girls have been dedicating their entire lives, practice to finally get to this level, to be in high school, to compete with the greatest, and to be beat by a man? How is that? How, as a father, do you have that talk with your young daughter on the way home? Like, what do you say to her? And how do people not think about that?
Yeah, no, I hear you, and thank God right now my kids aren't old enough to be going through that. But I,
I'm thankful
selfishly,
that
that's
I only have a
one of the
little boy.
reasons. What's that?
I said, I'm thankful that I only have a little boy.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, selfishly, one of the reasons that this hit me so hard when I saw you getting shut down was partly because of what you were talking about. And I have little kids, and if we don't get this under control, they're gonna get into athletics. I don't think it's that big around where I'm living. I live out of the main, the Twin Cities in Minnesota. Here, I live down south, and I don't think it's a big problem. But I really don't. I really don't know. I don't have my finger on the pulse of what's actually going on in the schools here yet. But so yeah, selfishly, I'm fighting this fight for my kids too.
Hell, most people don't know what's going on in your schools. I'll be honest. I didn't really know until I really started getting involved. What really got me involved with the school boards was during COVID. That's when I really started getting involved. That's when I started going to the school board meetings. And if you actually watch, my approach during COVID was a little bit different than my approach now. I was actually more, kind of following, I guess you would say, more following the rules and kind of try to do things a little more traditional than I did now. But when we did it that way and we didn't make these school board members sit there and feel as uncomfortable as Miss Muffy does every time she stares at me at the podium, they didn't care. They didn't care. They would just roll their eyes. During COVID, we showed up to these meetings. We gave them facts. We gave them evidence on how these masks were harming our children. They didn't care. They still voted whatever way they wanted to vote, and they looked at us like we were crazy. So the only way to make these school board members pay attention is to make them feel just as uncomfortable as our young daughters feel when they're standing in the bathroom and a young boy walks in.
Yeah, good point. Really good point. In one of the videos, you talked about something that was some sort of questionnaire or something that was sent home
Yeah, no. So
to your
it
kids.
was actually James Orr is the one who pointed it out in that video. He goes, "These are the questions that are they're asking. They're asking 10 to 12 year olds, and of course older, but to the youngest 10. When's the last time you had sex? Have you had oral sex? Have you had anal sex? You know, all these questions that you as a parent should be asking your own child, but should you be asking your own? I'm sorry, but I'm not talking to my 10-year-old son. I hopefully at 10 years old, I'm not asking him when's the last time he had sex. And they wonder why these kids are so sexualized nowadays, and it's because they have sexualized everything. I mean, look at the books that they try to push in our school. You're not allowed to stand up in the podium at school board meetings and read the content from these books, but they expect you to allow these books in our school libraries. They tell you it's inappropriate for you to stand there and show them what's in these books. but they say it's okay for it to be in middle schools.
Right. Right. You can't do it publicly in a public forum like that, but they can do it in front of your kids. Yeah.
Anyone listening to this, go to your public library. See if the book Gender Queer is in your public library in the kids section, and I guarantee you it is. I'll put $100 on it. Guarantee you that book is in every public school library and in your high school and in your city library too. And go look at what's in it. It talks about another boy sucking a neighbor off. It shows the pictures and stuff like that. It's damn near pornographic material.
Yeah. So I've only heard it described. I haven't ever actually seen the book myself. But that was another thing that just came out today or yesterday. Was
Yeah, the Supreme Court ruling.
Supreme Court. Yeah.
Trust me, that's going to be a little bit of a fire for me for at the next school board meeting.
I'm sure. So that, besides the questionnaire that you saw, is it that type of stuff is pushed on your kids too, as far as gender identity and at least learning it?
Right now, our school board is about as woke as it can get. I mean, you got, I hate to say this because I love the state of Maine. I'm not from Maine. I've only been in Maine for about 10 years, and I'll say I'll never live in any other state. Love the state. But with our governor right now that is ruining this state, we about fall right behind California is about as how woke you can get. And that's only because we got a small majority that's voting this dumb governor and dumb Democrats in. Most of the people here in this state are not for this stuff. And I'll be honest with you, when I was doing my petition and I was asking people, I knocked on doors and I talked to people from the other side that know who I am because I'm very well known here in Maine, and they don't like me. But they signed this petition because, you know what, they had daughters and they understood that, you know, like, hey, I don't agree with you with 90% of what you do, but this 10%, I can get behind you on this. And that's the thing is, like, this is not a left or a right issue. This is a 90 to 10% issue. Most human beings with a heart realize that this is not okay.
Yeah. No, I agree. And again, the research and stuff that I've done, it's at least 80-20, if not 90-10, like you said. And Democrats admit it, and then they turn around and immediately vote for it. Because I don't know what, they're stuck. I don't even know. Even something like this, it's like your constituents are telling you how they want you to vote, and yet you vote against that. I guess they're just stuck in their ways and they can't get out of it. So crazy. Trying to think of what other questions I have for you, Nick. This is good. I appreciate you making the time. I know that it's hard on you. You know, you got a young son at home and staying up late and working.
I appreciate you having me, man. I appreciate the coverage.
Yeah. I mean, you're an inspiration. I mean, yeah. Now I'm starting to look for other things like this. You know, I've seen a random, YouTube video of a school board meeting here or there over the last couple of years that got fiery, but
let me say this to the people that are watching, like where you say this is an inspiration, we appreciate, there's plenty of people like me that do this. There's at least one of me in every state. And where I'll say we don't do this, not saying that we don't appreciate the thank yous and stuff like that, but we're not doing this for thank yous. The reason why we do this is because we're trying to give courage to the next person. Because you know what? She can shut me down every week. But if 50 people showed up to this meeting, she can't shut down 50 people. So why we do this is to give other people the courage to say, you know what, listen, get up there. What you're doing is not wrong. Like, she can shut one person down. She can't shut down all of us. The silent majority can no longer be silent. It's time we be loud. It's time we be proud. We only got, 3.5 more years to take this country back before we got to worry about trying to elect a new president. So we need to put our feet 10 toes down in the sand and get to work, because if we don't, we're not going to have another 4 years. We got 3.5 years to get this right and to get ready for the next person. If we don't do that, we're done.
Well said.